From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media, or Voice of America, on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday hailed the early completion of the new footbridge and concourse at the Epifanio de los Santos Avenue, or EDSA busway Kamuning Station, saying the upgrades will ease the daily commute of more than 750,000 passengers. The President, joined by First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos and Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon, inspected the newly built covered footbridge that now links directly to the Kamuning busway station. The structure replaces the notoriously steep Mount Kamuning footbridge and now features elevators, wheelchair lifts, and a wider pedestrian-friendly walkway similar to the SM North Concourse. The President confirmed that the old footbridge will be closed to the public. President Marcos also emphasized the need for proper upkeep of the new facilities to ensure safe and convenient access for commuters. The Kamuning footbridge and station upgrade is part of the EDSA busway system modernization, a flagship program of the Department of Transportation. The project, carried out with the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, and the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, includes the rehabilitation of the Kamuning busway station and the construction of an integrated pedestrian access system designed to improve safety, accessibility, and transfer efficiency along EDSA.
How did you manage the flight upstairs today?
Well, the old one is not very good at all. At saka, hindi mo ma-realize pag nandito ka sa baba, gumagalaw pala yan pag kami dumadaan. Kaya mas mabuti na ito. That's why the first time that we saw it, nung in-inspection namin, yung MRT, ay sabi ko talagang hindi practical yung kanilang ginawa. Kaya ngayon, ay may pinagbago, naayos natin ito within 4 months. Ang pangako sa atin ay 6 na buwan, 4 na buwan pa lang tapos na. Kaya ngayon, mas mababa na ang akyatin ng hagdan, tapos meron ng elevator para yung mga hindi kayang umakyat ng hagdan, meron pa tayong wheelchair lift na ginawa para sa yung mga naka-wheelchair. Pati wheelchair, they provided a wheelchair para mas magaang naman ang magiging commuting experience. Kaya so far, I'm happy to see that this is the sort of thing that ito naman ay kaya naman palang gawin. Hindi naman ganun kahirap, at basta desidido tayo na ayusin natin ang commuter experience. Dahil ang dumadaan sa bus pa lang ay 750,000 ang pasahero kada.
MRT and bus.
So the MRT and bus, 750,000 ang gumagamit ng everyday. Mapagaang lang ng kaunti ang kanilang mahirap na nga mag-commute. Mahaba, mainit, kung ganun. Sabi ko dapat naman tugunan natin yung pang-araw-araw na dinadaanan ng ating mga kababayan para makapunta sa trabaho at para makauwi.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has signed a new law extending the life of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2, until the end of 2027 to ensure the continuity of key education reforms. The President on Wednesday approved Republic Act, or RA 12315, which amends RA 11899 and allows the Commission to operate for 2 more years beyond its original mandate, which would have ended in December 2025. Under the law, EDCOM-2 will continue its work of conducting research, consultations, and oversight on the rollout of the National Education and Workforce Development Plans. It is also directed to work closely with Department of Education, or DepEd, Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, Department of Health, or DOH, Congress, and other stakeholders to align education and training programs with national development goals and labor market needs. The measure tasked the Commission with guiding policy reforms to update curricula, teaching methods, and assessment systems to meet global standards. It must also craft long-term solutions to gaps in school infrastructure, learning resources, and teacher training to help create safe and effective learning environments. EDCOM-2 is further instructed to update the National Education Roadmap by integrating artificial intelligence, or AI, digital and green technologies, and other emerging innovations to future-proof the country's education system. Funding for the implementation of RA 12315 will come from available budgets of the Senate and the House of Representatives, with succeeding allocations to be included in the annual national budget. The law, made public on Thursday, will take effect 15 days after its publication in the Official Gazette, or a newspaper of general circulation. The signing comes after President Marcos received EDCOM-2's final report on January 29th at Malacañang. The report, titled Turning Point: A Decade of Necessary Reform, outlines the Commission's 3-year assessment of the state of Philippine education and the systematic issues driving the country's learning crisis. President Marcos urged a collective, long-term effort to implement reforms that transcend political terms.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang is calling for tighter security across all government offices after the National Security Council, or NSC, uncovered espionage and foreign-directed malign activities in the country linked to China. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said security agencies have already taken action against individuals flagged under the government's Insider Threat Program. She urged all government personnel to safeguard sensitive information and stay alert to possible threats. Castro reminded agencies to be cautious and observant, stressing the need to protect offices and prevent any compromise of government data. The NSC earlier described the case as a serious national security matter involving Filipino nationals allegedly working for Chinese intelligence. The council said the operations have been addressed and terminated, with the suspects apprehended through joint counterintelligence work. According to the NSC, all those arrested, described as Filipino nationals, have admitted their involvement in espionage and are now cooperating with authorities. The council declined to release identities or operational details, citing national security concerns. The arrests were made under the Insider Threat Program, which aims to protect government information systems and critical infrastructure from foreign espionage, coercion, and malicious compromise. The NSC also appealed to Congress to fast-track the proposed Anti-Espionage Bill and the Anti-Foreign Malign Influence and Interference Act to strengthen the country's defenses against covert foreign operations.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines is taking the lead in crafting a regional disaster response roadmap for Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN, pushing for faster and more coordinated emergency support among the bloc's 11 member states. The initiative centers in the Manila ASEAN Strategic Protocol for Emergency and Comprehensive Transformation or ASPECT, a framework proposed by the Philippines and targeted for ASEAN adoption before the country ends its chairship in 2026. After a week of ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community or ASCC meetings in Makati, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian said, ASPECT will introduce a trigger mechanism that allows rapid cross-border deployment of aid during disasters and extreme weather events. He said the goal is to make regional response anticipatory, integrated, and inclusive rather than reactive. Gatchalian explained that ASPECT is designed to strengthen and streamline the work of the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance, noting that disaster response should be collective and proportional to the scale of an emergency. He said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. wants a system where bigger disasters automatically prompt broader ASEAN involvement. Gatchalian added that climate-driven weather patterns often affect multiple countries, citing how storms that hit the Philippines frequently impact Vietnam as well. A draft leader statement on the ASPECT framework is now being circulated among ASEAN members and is expected to be adopted during the 48th ASEAN Summit in Cebu this May.
Following the directive of the President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., taking into account the intensifying environmental threats we experience, the ASEAN Strategic Protocol for Emergency and Comprehensive Transformation, or ASPEC, the framework aims to develop a roadmap for regional interoperability and cooperation for the timely and effective access of support in anticipation of and in response to disasters and extreme weather events. We envision the transforming of our disaster response practices to being anticipatory, integrated, and inclusive. And hopefully, the leader statement is one of the two documents for adoption at the 48th ASEAN Summit. Moreover, the ASCC ministers have endorsed 10 documents for notation. Friends from media, indeed, the work of the ASCC does not end here. As highlighted in the ASCC High-Level Forum, we heard directly from the ASEAN member states their perspectives and views on the present and emerging challenges in the region. Building on the conversation, the ASEAN ASCC ministers have adopted the statement of empowering ASEAN peoples. This document reaffirms our commitment to advance human capital development to allow our people to be active players in nation building.
That was Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian.
Dateline Malacañang.
A total of 299 Filipinos fleeing rising tensions in the Middle East are back home after arriving Thursday at Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA Terminal 3, where they were met with full government assistance. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo led the welcome team, assuring the returnees that the government is ready to support them. He thanked President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as well as the United Arab Emirates government and Emirates Airlines for helping ensure the group's safe passage home. According to the Presidential Communications Office or PCO, The passenger list included both repatriated Filipinos and other travelers who sought to return amid the escalating regional conflict. Of the 299 arrivals, the Department of Migrant Workers or DMW said 23 are overseas Filipino workers or OFWs accompanied by 2 children. Government agencies immediately provided aid, including financial assistance through the DMW's Action Fund, temporary accommodation and transportation arranged by the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA, medical checks and provided health services conducted by the Department of Health or DOH, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD provided psychosocial support to help OFWs cope with stress from the crisis. The group included OFWs who were advised by employers to return home, those who completed their contracts, and others who chose to come home for good. Malacañang earlier assured the public that contingency plans remain in place to assist Filipinos abroad should tensions in the region worsen.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, a total of 33 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs from Dubai are back home after arriving early Friday morning at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA Terminal 3 aboard Emirates Flight EK336, where they were met by a full government reception team. The returning workers were welcomed by Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Magpayo, who led the whole of government response to ensure immediate assistance upon arrival. Joining him were Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD National Capital Region Assistant Regional Director for Operations Bienvenido Barbosa Jr., Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA Repatriation and Assistance Division Officer in Charge, Dr. Amelito Adel, the new NAIA Infrastructure Corporation medical team, and personnel from the Bureau of Quarantine. Government agencies mobilized to deliver essential services as soon as the OFWs disembarked. The arrival of the 33 OFWs formed part of the government's continuing effort to assist Filipinos abroad who may be affected by employment issues, personal circumstances, or regional developments. The coordinated response also reflects the government's broader push to ensure that stranded workers are not left behind and that reintegration support begins the moment they land.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Philippine government is studying the possibility of lowering toll rates along the Manila-Cavite Expressway or Cavitex once the tollway becomes fully owned by the state through the PEA Tollway Corporation or PEATC. PEATC President and Chief Executive Officer Delfin Torrecampo said Thursday that toll reductions can only be implemented once government ownership reaches 100%, noting that the expressway is still under a joint venture with a private partner. Torrecampo explained that full ownership would allow the national government to subsidize toll revenues. He said that a 100 peso toll rate approved by the Toll Regulatory Board could potentially be reduced to around 80 pesos once the tollway is entirely government-run. PEATC currently earns about 3.6 billion pesos annually from Cavitex operations or roughly 10 million pesos a day from around 200,000 vehicles. The opening of the C5 Link Expressway Segment 3B is expected to add another 300 million pesos in yearly revenue from an estimated 11,500 additional vehicles, bringing projected annual earnings to about 4 billion pesos. Around 1 billion pesos of this is expected to go to the national government through taxes. Cavitex operates under a public-private partnership between the Philippine Reclamation Authority or PRA through PEATC and Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation, which handles financing, construction, and development. Toll rates and expansion plans remain subject to TRB approval. Officials also said discussions are ongoing with tollway partners and regulators on possible measures to ease the burden on motorists, especially with fuel prices expected to rise due to tensions in the Middle East. PEATC Chair Anthony Peter Crisologo said a toll holiday similar to the one implemented when Segment 2 opened in 2024 is among the options being studied. PRA Assistant General Manager Joselito Gonzalez said the government continues to work with regulators and private partners to ensure toll policies remain sensitive to economic conditions, adding that government participation in tollway operations helps temper potential rate increases and protect motorists' interests.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, at least 21,000 working-class Filipinos are expected to benefit from 2 new housing developments in Cavite Province under the expanded Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino program or 4PH, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development or DSUD announced Thursday. DSUD Secretary Jose Ramon Aliling and Pag-ibig Fund Chief Executive Officer Marilyn Acosta joined Megawide Construction Corporation Chief Executive Officer Edgar Saavedra for the groundbreaking of the projects, which are being developed by PH1 World Developers. The developments are located in the towns of Salitran and Paliparan. The 2 sites will feature 26 multi-story condominium towers capable of generating more than 7,000 housing units under the expanded 4PH program, part of the government's push to close the country's housing backlog. The ceremony was also attended by DSUD Senior Undersecretary Eduardo Robles Jr. and other key officials from DSUD and Pag-ibig, underscoring the administration's commitment to accelerating housing production nationwide.
Dateline Malacañang.
We interrupt our program to give way to a presidential event as President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. leads the launch of the Trabaho at Negosyo held at the Music Hall of SM Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City.
Mula sa Presidential Communications Office at Radyo Pilipinas, ito ang Presidential Live Event. Presidential Live Event.
Listening to Joey when he introduced her to say that she is one of the hardest working cabinet secretaries. We should amend that one of the hardest working people that I know. And also Go Negosyo founder, Joey Concepcion, another one of the hardest working people that I've ever met. And he is such an inspiration. Dahil kami sa trabahong ito, matagal na rin namin ginagawa ito na pinopromote natin mga MSMEs. But Joey has been doing this for decades. And it is clearly a labor of love for him. And we should be very grateful to have champions for MSMEs like Joey. The Pasay City Mayor, Mayor Emmy Calixto Rubiano, my fellow workers in government, our partners in the private sector, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Masaya akong na makasama kayo ngayong araw upang ilunsad ang trabaho at negosyo. Marami sa mga kababayan natin na nagsimula sa maliit na pangarap, isang food cart sa kanto, isang pwesto sa basar, isang online store na pinapatakbo na nagsimula lamang sa kanilang mga bahay. Ngunit hindi madali ang pagsimula at pagpapalago ng isang negosyo. Maraming MSME ang nahaharap sa iba't ibang hamon, kakulangan ng puhunan, limitadong access sa mamimili, access to market, mabilis na pagbabago ng ekonomiya at ng teknolohiya. Kasabay nito, marami ring mga kababayan natin ang nahihirapang makahanap ng trabaho, lalo na yung mga tumutugma sa kanilang kakayahan at ang kanilang pinag-aralan. Kaya narito tayo ngayon upang magbigay sa MSMEs at mga kababayang naghahanap ng trabaho ng inspirasyon, suporta at pagkakataon. Today, we live in a very uncertain world. What many of us have studied and developed a decade or even just a couple of years ago are sometimes we find no longer relevant. Industries are being reshaped by digital technology and artificial intelligence or AI. Traditional jobs are transforming. The skills that were once optional, now they are essential. Naniniwala ko kayang makasabay naman ang mga Pilipino. Alam naman natin na sa kabila ng mga hamon, maabilidad at madiskarte ang ating mga kababayan. Marunong tayong maghanap ng paraan. Hindi natin sinusukuan ang problema kahit na ano ang hinaharap natin. Hindi hadlang ang makabagong mundo sa ating pag-unlad. Bagkus, gagamitin natin ito upang magtagumpay pa sa buhay. Panatilihin lang natin ang tiwala sa ating mga sarili. Huwag matakot sa teknolohiya. Pagbutihin ang ating mga kakayahan at samantalahin ang pagkakataon na dumadating sa atin. Tulad na lamang ng pagkakataong ibinibigay ngayong araw, ang trabaho at negosyo na programa ng Go Negosyo. Dito, may learning session kasama ang industry expert at thought leaders at magbabahagi ng kanilang kaalaman at karanasan sa larangan ng pagnenegosyo. May job fair na nag-uugnay sa ating mga kababayan at employer mula sa iba't ibang sektor. May mga one-stop shop pa na serbisyo na isinasagawa ngayon para magbigay ng pre-employment assistance at advisory service ang ilang ahensya ng gobyerno gaya ng DTI, ng TESDA, BIR at iba pa. Makakaasa po kayo na patuloy ang administrasyon na ito sa pagpapaunlad ng kasanayan ng ating mga kababayan. Ang pagpapalakas ng mga programang makakatulong sa bawat Pilipino na makahanap ng trabaho. Sa pamamagitan ng mas pinalakas na employment program, kabilang na ang skills training at business mentoring, mas napapalapit natin ang trabaho at pagkakataon sa ating mga mamamayan. Noong nakaraang taon, nakapagsagawa tayo ng mahigit 2,300 job fair sa buong bansa. Mula rito, higit 74,000 na job seeker ang kaagad na nakatanggap ng trabaho. Itong Enero lamang, 47 job fair na ang naisagawa natin at mula rito, mahigit 2,400 ang hired on the spot. Ibig sabihin, dito sa job fair pa lang, nakakuha na sila ng trabaho. Kasabay nito, pinapalawak din natin ang mga programa para sa reskilling, upskilling, at saka yung enterprise-based training ng ating mga manggagawa. Ibig sabihin, specialized training na po ito ang magtuturo ang mismo magiging employer ninyo. Para naman sa ating mga MSME, ginawa nating mas simple at mas mabilis ang serbisyo ng gobyerno. Sinisikap din natin na palawakin ang access sa puhunan at patibayin ang mga programang tumutulong sa paglago ng kabuhayan. Yung pong binanggit ni Secretary Roque tungkol sa pagtulong sa pautang, patulong sa pag-job matching. Sa pamamagitan ng mga negosyo center, mas napapalapit ang mga serbisyo ng pamahalaan sa mga negosyante. Dito, maaari kayong mabigyan ng payo, magkaroon ng mentorship, at makakuha ng tulong upang mapalapit ang inyong mga negosyo sa mamimili. Inaasahan natin na ang mga programang ito ang magbibigay ng dagdag na lakas sa kabuhayan ng ating mga kababayan. Ang isang sari-sari store owner ay maaring makapagpalawak ng negosyo sa pamamagitan ng itinatawag na e-commerce. Ang isang bagong graduate mula sa probinsya ay hindi na kailangan pang lumuwas sa Maynila upang magtrabaho, basta't may sapat na kasanayan at internet. We equip our people not only to survive, but to succeed in this changing world. Sa layuning ito ng pamahalaan, katuwang natin ang ating mga kaibigan at partners sa pribadong sektor. Through the advocacy of Go Negosyo, we promote a positive mindset towards business, not as a last resort, but as a strong complement to our collective role in nation building. Truly, we cannot diminish the role of the private sector in helping the government address employment gaps, from identifying skills needed by industry to easing the path of doing business in our country. Kaya't hinihikayat ko po kayong lahat dito na pakinabangan ang learning session. Gamitin po ninyo ang kaalaman mula doon upang mapalakas pa ang kakayanan ninyo dito sa trabaho at negosyo. Because when we build skills, we build confidence. When we create jobs, we restore the dignity of our people. And when we strengthen our economic foundations, we build a stronger nation for tomorrow. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang mga negosyante at manggagawang Pilipino. Mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now...
And you just heard the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as he led the launch of the Trabajo at Negosyo held at the Music Hall of SM Mall of Asia in Pasay City.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.